Welcome back to another chess video, ladies and gentlemen, and today I have a nice one for you yet again. Because today I participated in a rapid arena 10-0. It's one of those arenas of chess.com where you play until like the time finishes. Yeah, that's basically it. It was hosted by a Twitch streamer by the name of Blue Aqua. For my long-term viewer fans, and my short new ones that have recently joined, and welcome by the way, remember that name. For my long viewers, you know what this means. For my new ones, you'll have to wait and see. Well, that was poetic. Anyway, this is the result of the arena. Out of the 15 games that I've played in 90 minutes, I got 14 wins and 1 loss. And those, the second game I lost, and the rest of it was simply just a win streak that was never broken till the end. I will be showing you all the games, yeah. Except one, maybe. Let's begin. So, we start off with the first game. Let's begin. e4, e6. We have the French defense. Very classic. We have d4, d5, and e5. We have the advanced variation, which is the most common approach to the French. It's not the most combative approach, but it's the most popular, and it's fine. c5, c3, knight c6, knight f3. Queen b6, we follow the main line, and now white chooses the continuation. The main line is a3, which is the best move you can actually play, shockingly enough. But white chooses a sideline here with bishop e2. Bishop e2 is a sideline. It's not the main move. It has been tried and tested across time. In this position, you can go for a lot of stuff. The main move here is knight h6, but I decided to go for a slight deviation. We used to move knight g to e7. Not the most accurate response. It's just a very slight deviation. But yeah, black is still fine. Now, you know, white can do a lot of stuff like taking and playing b4. But white plays castles, which is fine. And then I go knight f5, which is the idea of the move knight e7. D takes e5, bishop takes e5, and b4. Now b4, the disadvantage of the move is that the c3 pawn could be weak, but could be, you can just push it to c4 and then crack at the center of black. So there's not really much as a weakness, but yeah, bishop b7. And you might be asking, what if g4? Well, g4 actually is not something you should worry about. First of all, you can go knight h4 and just go back to g6. And of course, if they trade and try to trap your bishop, that's actually pretty bad, because first of all, you can reroute with your queen. Second of all, there's also a hanging pawn here. And yeah, it's not looking great. And if g4 and you do actually decide to go back like this, you shouldn't even worry about this, because this actually is a very good transformation for black from a practical standpoint, because you open up the g file and white has advanced on it, which means you can play h5 and crack at the king. So yeah, not really a move you can play. a4, trying to go for the queenside expansion, which is a very standard move, and a6. Also, I'm lagging a lot. I have no idea why. Apologies for that. a5. a6 stops bishop b5 from happening, which could be a move. a5, queen c7, targeting the weak e5 pawn, and bishop f4. Bishop f4, and now I'm thinking for a couple of things. One of my ideas was h6, but after h6, my knight would be trapped in the side of the board. But actually, you can play the move bishop g5 here. I don't know. This is like bishop takes, then ace takes, and then g takes, and then what? G5, g4, and apparently black has equalized. But I don't recommend this at all. I don't know why this is even the top line. Castles, the most normal move. b5 attacking the knight. Not really worried about that. A takes, b takes, and rook takes a5. That was just a clean free pawn. I calculated for a while here to see if there was any continuation. There's not. Rook takes, queen takes, and bishop takes, which is very inaccurate. And now, a decision for white. What they should do, they're down a pawn, they have to strike at the king, right? No, they go c4. c4 is fine, but here I play the move bishop a6, pinning the c pawn. White can get out of this pretty simply with a move rook e1. I can take the pawn, and this is in fact what I do. And after knight bd2, um, I play another good move here, bishop b5, retreating the move. Another thing that I calculated was bishop b4. This is what I meant, not bishop b5. But after queen c2, there's just nothing, and I just, have to move the bishop again. So yeah, not really necessary. So bishop b5 straight away. Knight a3, just attacking my queen. And now queen a6. I could have also tried queen a4, which is the best line. And targeting the bishop on the f4 square, as well as pinning the knight, potentially winning it. I don't know why I didn't play that move. I guess I thought that after knight e2, I don't really continue it. So yeah, knight b3, queen a6, knight fd4, getting on the center. Getting in the center, knight takes, bishop c4. Preparing c5 in advance, bishop g3, calm little retreating move, I don't know why. And bishop b4. And now we're just getting in with the position. The rook is almost trapped, by the way. And after rook e3 and c5, knight c2, just a slight attacking of my pieces. Queen a4, pinning the knight to the queen. Queen c1, rook a8. Rook a8, I'm really proud of that. Now, most people will just retreat the bishop or go d4. But I didn't like this for some reason. I didn't like that. But, yeah, I'm just completely winning here still. I didn't like this for some reason, but I went for the other idea, rook a8. And rook a8 just has a very, very simple threat. To go queen a1. And after queen a1, you simply lose. You're down a piece. Down a pawn. Excuse me. I'm drunk. Not really. After knight takes, c takes, we have passed pawn. 3 squares away from promoting. h3, queen a1, takes, king h2, b3. And the bishop and the rook stop the rook from stopping the pawn. And my opponent, being 1900, close to 2000, resigns. And this was my first game and my first victory of the mats. And yeah, let's go to the next one. So this is the second game that I played. This against a 2100. A bit higher than my elo. This was in English. I played the Agent Court Defense. This is what I really like to do against the friends. And now my preparation is d5. And now this can go for a couple of ways. First of all, I can just take this pawn. But I go knight f6 and accidentally transpose to a semi-Slav. Now, I have played the semi-Slav before. The problem is I still remember the theory, at least most of it. Against the Catalan, the semi-Slav is really good. Especially if you don't take the c4 pawn and just keep it there. In my opinion, it's very nice. If you face against the English, specifically the Catalan, and you accidentally transpose from the English to the Catalan. This is a Neo-Catalan. After when white plays d4, it's a Catalan. Neo-Catalan basically means that white hasn't placed the pawn on d4 yet. d4, now we're back in the Catalan. Castles, knight bd2, knight bd7, b3. This is a triangle system, still a semi-Slav. And now black should go for stuff like b6 and c5. I mouse slipped. And from this point on, after mouse slipping b5, I knew for sure I was going to lose this game. Because the move c5 is very strong, and one slip actually doomed the entire game. Now, it's still possible to do something, although that move shouldn't have happened in the first place. Now I have to play fast, a5, trying to expand on the queen side, but after bishop b2, I really, really did not like my position. Had to find bishop a6, but I played knight e4, which was a desperate attempt of trying to open up the position, because I've mouse slipped b5. And after this, and I'm simply gonna have to lose a pawn. There is no way to avoid that. After takes, you can play f5 because you're en passant. So queen takes d1. And even though for a split second I'm actually trading pawns, after bishop b7, white simply gets in. And yeah, I straight up lost. I played a move and resigned. And that's pretty boss. It's pretty unsportsmanlike if you do it in over the board, but sometimes that's how I resign. However, this would be my only loss in this arena. From this point on, for the next 13 games, it would be straight victories from this point on. So buckle up, fasten your seatbelts, and yeah, let's go to the next one. Alright, for the third game, the only reason I'm showing it is because I played against the person who made the arena. Blue Aqua, perennial 600, and Twitch streamer. For my long-term viewers, remember that name for two reasons. One of them is this video, the other one, if you know, you know. D4, G6, we have a King's Indian Samus. Now, before I used to go for the 4 pawns attack, or I would go for a Catalan sometimes. F3 though is a very, very subtle move. And in fact, not a lot of King's Indian players know this. You should know it, because it's a very combative way of approaching the King's Indian. Of course, you know, the higher the elo, the more you'll see this, and the more you will be prepared for it if you're playing with black. But at lower levels, like, this is just not a move you see, like F3. Like, at 1300 and below, you probably won't see the Samus. Most people go knight f3 or f4, try and get as much space as possible. This is how the hyper-modernists were beaten back in the day, I think. Back in the day, chess was split between hyper-modernists and people that liked getting the center. Hyper-modern being you control the center with pieces and strike with pawns later in the game. Centers where, you know, central control is everything. That's what it meant. Anyway, f3. Knight d7 with bishop b3, castles, queen d2, rook e8. If rook e8 was not played and something stupid like, I don't know, b6, I would have gone here, traded the bishop. Something, well, not as bad as this. But, like, yeah, this is probably what I would have done. To get rid of that dark square bishop and create weaknesses around the king. Rook e8, bishop d3, e5. Against e5, you really shouldn't take and open up the bishop with knight takes. You can also just not push at all. You actually have two choices here. Both are really good. The engine wants d5. This is what I sometimes go for, especially in blitz games. And against the Benoni defense, I play the move d5, throw those weds. But instead I go for this other line, which now I'm starting to play more and more, knight g to e2, and then after takes b6. Now b6 is horrible, we'll talk about it why. Between these two pieces, what do you take with the knight? Because you might want to, like, transfer it to the queen side, play there, and stuff like that. Now b6 is actually losing, because after b6 there is knight to c6, trapping the queen. And the only way to get out of this is sacrificing your knight, and then you have to take this knight, and you have to give this check, and after bishop f2, you go here, you force a queen trade, and you just win the game, because you're up a piece, and you might lose another piece very, very, very soon. So yeah. I actually didn't even register the move b6. I straight up played castles. I might have pre-moved that, I'm going to be honest. I might have pre-moved that. Not gonna lie. But yeah, castles, not the best, but still white is very, very happy here. Because this bishop really doesn't have a future unless this thing opens up with f5. Yeah, that's the only reason white can open up the center. Although the e4 pawn is very well supported and will be supported even further. So bishop b7, stopping that. Bishop g5, pinning the knight. This is a nice little move. You can move the bishop twice. To pin this knight, just make sure it doesn't move so you can, like, kind of mess with black and not allow them to play the move f5 later down the line after moving their knight. And Blue Aqua plays the move h6, immediately losing a pawn, trading down, and we get the weaknesses we asked for, plus a pawn. And yeah, c6, I don't know what c6 does, except weakening the d5 pawn. I guess you want to go for d5. Not really a move I'm really worried about. After knight c2, it just went back, and d5. I just went rook fe1, because if you take with this, that's fine. You opened up my bishop, congratulations. Your bishop is horrible for the rest of the game. Mine is just a god, and I'm actually threatening to win this pawn too. Like, for example, if b5, their queen takes here. For example, that's just an example. I don't know if it's the most accurate move. Yeah, it is the most accurate move. King h8. And, like, bishop takes here, for example. I mean, just, yeah, you're lost. D4 instead, shutting down both of our bishops. Not quite, not gonna lie. d4 92, and c5. c5 just shuts down both of our plays, of our bishops. And now, who benefits more with a close center? The guy who's attacking. And who's attacking? I'm the one doing the attacking. Knight h5. That just loses another pawn for no reason, but I didn't take the pawn. The reason why I didn't take the pawn is because I did a hard calculation here. e5. Now, there's only one way to prevent the idea of e5. Unfindable for this dude's level, but still a valiant effort if it was found. The move is knight f to e8, which stops checkmate patterns. And then you would take the pawn, be up 2 pawns, be completely happy, black is completely pacified, and then you will just go on and win the game. But instead, black took the pawn with the rook. And here is where the 2000-ism kicked in. I calculated for like a minute here the checkmate sequence. Bishop h7 is a very, very nice checkmate pattern. King h8, discover check, check, and mate. The easiest mate in 4 you can find. When your king is too weak, checkmate patterns like that exist. Now, what if they took with the knight? What if they took this pawn with the knight? Then it would have been a mate in 6, actually, and it would begin, first of all, with... actually, both of these two work. My idea was rook takes. Of course, bishop takes, bishop h7 check always also works. Both of them are mates. But I calculated that after rook takes, I would have the same sequence that I showed you before. In fact, I would get a free brilliant for it as well. And if you just don't take that rook, if you go like, try to find a way to stop this mate, I don't think you can. But moves like, I don't know. Bishop e4, trying to stop the bishop. I'll just take the bishop, still sack the rook. You still would have to take that rook, there's no choice. And yeah, we finish off the game with a nice little pawn clearance sacrifice. Let's go on to another game. And the next game I'm going to cover completely quickly. It was a Queen's Gambit e4, e6. Not a good approach against the Queen's Gambit because just take the pawn. Among my preparation, knight f6 actually is not in my preparation. This is where we actually leave off theory. A lot of moves possible here. Knight c3, but I go for something different today because f3. I tried f3 today. This was among my preparation. Just want to see how it does. It did well, and actually it's not a bad move. I know the engine is probably going to hate it. Yeah, it does, but like it's not actually a bad move in the sense that it kills your position. No, it's actually pretty fine. If the computer wants c5 immediately striking at the center, I could go knight e2. There's no problem to that. Bishop d6 though, and yeah, that's why I'm going to go quickly over this game, because there was a fork, and then knight there, and then queen there, pawn there, simple conversion, defending that pawn, trading down. We have a weak pawn, but like, we have like 2 pieces, and mate in 2, and yeah. You could have taken the rook, but it wouldn't be mate. Instead, you just go for the king, and yeah, that's the next game. Let's go next one. Alright, next one. This is against the 1900. I'm going to start the video. Let's go. We have another French Steiner. The Steiner is a surprise weapon against the French defense. It's playable, it's fine. I actually saw this over the board rapid against one of my friends. He actually plays the Steiner to get a draw his position, and he was right. We made a draw, and everyone thought we actually faked it. You know, so both of us could stay in the tournament. No, we didn't. It was... I must have fumbled and actually drew, I don't know. But it was very drawish from the beginning, not gonna lie. Because after d5, takes, not knight c3, like takes. Knight c3 is also very drawish. It's just draw. You take this is just drawn, there's nothing here. Like, you can go like 30 moves deep and still draw this. Of course, white can still attack, but it's just very drawish. There's nothing. Knight c3 is also a very drawish move. Same stuff. We have the same exact position. We had the Mykonos Carls variation for a second from the Inkless, which is what Karpov played back in the day. But yeah, back to the Steiner defense, Steiner variation, defense defense, and simply knight f3, bishop e7. All of this happens, and now white simply has to do like one thing here to not get destroyed. Bishop b3, knight there, castles, castles there, and like bishop f6 to try and put a bishop on the diagonal, and then just draw. It's just the engine is like 0-0-0, draw, be done with this. All of my positions, the Steiner over the board, have been draws, and I had like probably one or two. Yeah, instead, white goes for bishop takes f7. And in fact, I actually took a look at this when I was reorganizing my opening preparation thingies, and I concluded that this was bad because white does not have an attack. It looks scary, and king takes f7 on the move to keep the advantage, but 95 check, and I think what white was going for was me going to g8 or e8. If g8 actually mated, almost, queen b3, I have to sack my queen, I think. No, knight d5. Yeah, I have to lose like a shitload of material. Yeah. This is what they hoped for, probably. And if e8, this will come in, and then this... Oh, sorry, not that. This, and I would be hanging on by a thread here. Although it's two pieces, for the rook and two pawns, it's better for white, because, first of all, my king is completely weak. And they're going to be winning another pawn, or they're going to force me into a target zone, and probably get mated in a couple of moves. So yeah, instead, the best move is f8. And after queen f3 check, trying to continue, bishop f6. And if you go crazy with g4, I got queen a7. And yeah, this is, you have nothing here. If d4, I go king g8, and you have no more attack. If g5, I take. If you defend your knight, then game goes on. Game goes on, I can still take and go knight d7, start trading pieces off. Like this, I go there, we trade pieces further. And then there's nothing, and you will just lose. You have to go along castles to keep the advantage. But after this, and this, very simply, first of all, there's a free pawn. Second of all, you can just go bishop b6 and not even have to worry about the pawn. There's also queen g5 check, which wins the pawn. Which actually wins the g-pawn in a weird way. After this, there's this. And you have to go queen d3. And then you take the rook. There's no draw here. The knight covers all the squares. And then you go, like... You can take the pawn. You can go back and defend. I would take the pawn, personally. Knight e2 does nothing. And yeah, as you can see, black is completely dominating this position. They're just up a rook, and yeah, there's just also like up 2 pawns. So yeah, not a good position at all. This is gonna be the outcome. Knight d3 though, trying to continue the attack desperately. Queen e7 check. Queen e7 check is fine. You force the king to either f1 or d1. I don't care where they actually decided to go. They ended up going to d1, which is the more logical of the two moves, because f1 completely locks your rook in jail for the next 3 moves. So king d1, h5. h5 has a nice little threat. If you play the move rook e1, there is bishop g4. If you take, I take with check, you're down in exchange. And if you take, I take with check again, you're down in exchange. Not only just down in exchange, I think you're just down like a clean rook. Anyway, doesn't matter. h3, stopping that. Knight c6, developing. Rook e1, queen d7. More accurate move was queen f7, which would get me out of the spin. But queen e7, queen d7 is also fine. b3, queen f5, trying to get the queen trade on the board. Bishop a3 check is a nice, sneaky little move, although after bishop e7, I know the engine hates it, but computer can just, you know, I don't care. Really, I don't really care. King f7 is the best move, but I didn't want to walk into different checks. Bishop b7 is far more natural. First of all, this is opened up. This is opened up. We trade down with knight takes. Queen e3, trying to put some pressure to my position. If I move the knight like a lazy person, I get mated in one. So yeah, clean mate in one. So queen f6, defending. Queen f7 was also fine, but I wanted to give my king a bit of space. If this we take, if this, we can like take on a1 with check. Force the king to go there or there. If you go there, you get royal forked. Not royal forked, excuse me. Like, I can force you to go there, and then get royal forked. But if not, and you go back there, I think I can take this pawn too. And, yeah, the pieces are nice, but they're not really doing anything. The king is very weak. Outside A pawn, outside B pawn. King is going to be protected in a couple of moves, and there's nothing there. So yeah, king c2, guarding against that. Bishop f5. Pinning the knight, which also stops this simultaneously. So yeah, this move had two ideas. If this, I would just take. I don't care. Like, I don't care. I'm winning this in my sleep. There's nothing here. Like, queen c6 check, forcing a queen trade, and then knight takes, and I'm just up a full knight in this game. There is nothing. Queen c5, bishop takes d3 check, and forcing a queen trade like that. And now we're just in this endgame where we're just up a whole piece for just a pawn. Yeah, they're going to generate a little bit of counterplay. King f7 was the most accurate move. King h7, I think the computer wanted a bit more, or king g7. But yeah, after this, I mean, I'm just fine. Even though it looks a bit passive for black, a couple of moves later, I convert. I fork them, by the way, a little trap. And yeah, and I just win. And in this position, my opponent resigned. And now we go to the next game. Gonna go over this one very quickly. It's against the 165 elo. Nothing to this. England Gambit. You know how this goes. c6. I have no clue what c6 is. Don't ask me. I don't know. G3, F6. Some logical play for 100 though. Not gonna lie. Trying to get to development. I am joking. They did not take back with the knight. D5, and I mean, it was just simple conversion. B3 just for double fianchetto. I was in a bit of the ropes. And in fact, here black goes for the for the two pieces for the rook position. Actually, here had a much better move. It's G4, but honestly, that's also like completely winning for you. Two pieces, and a pawn. Remember, it's a gambit. Oh, actually, no, the pawn back here. Never mind. But still, two pieces for the rook and the pawn. It's nothing. You win every time with the two pieces. There are some very finite amounts of endgames. Like, they're very small odds you get into these types of endgames where a two-piece endgame against a rook doesn't work out. But yeah. And after this, knight d7, h3, and bishop takes, knight takes. We simply activate everything after knight e5. And I didn't take. I went knight d4 instead. Try and get the royal, the royal fork. Knight d4 just threatens the fork of the rook and the queen. Queen b6 is the best move. But I'm going to be honest, white activates very quickly. I have the bishop pair, open position, king h2 anytime I want it. Actually, black found the move queen b6, which is surprising. King h2, what I just described. c5, bishop takes d5 check, hanging a pawn, continuity, forgetting what was defended. King g7. Yeah, it didn't take too long for them to blunder, and we did get the rook, and we got this. They can't take back because pawn is pinned to the king. And now we force the queen trade. We don't care about that check. He didn't even take the pawn. And just converting the game. Really, nothing. Lost the rook as well. Then I decided to make a rook and BM them. And yeah, that was done. Let's go to the next one. Alright, next one against the 700, d4, d5, c4, bishop e6, that is very weird. Now, I was a bit worried about this one, because it was a very first account. I was a bit concerned why bishop e6 was played, but was probably like a 100 in an account that had like a lot of elo. You start with like 600. C takes, bishop takes, and knight c3, and knight f6, took the bishop there, and just got knight f3 in, got g3 in, and I'm not concerned about this move, because just block, nothing there. Bishop e7, and bishop g2, castles a3 now, c6, castles, and queen b3. b5 is very, very awful move. I don't know what b5 even does. A move that you can play here with white is, one of them is this move, but I went for e3. I went to e3. Queen d7, knight e5, and queen b7. A lot of queen rerouting, not gonna lie. A lot of queen rerouting. Very inaccurate queen rerouting, but still, nonetheless. Bishop d2, knight b d7. We can take the free pawn, and that's in fact what I do. I also threaten a discover check and attack on the queen, which black kind of sees the attack, but also doesn't, because that's just a free queen. And also, I didn't even take the knight. I just kept my bishop, because I could have obviously traded, but I decided to keep my bishop until the end. So bishop g2, e4, yeah, and the rest of the game is just conversion, like always. I do give up that pawn to get that pawn. Obviously, if you take, then this. So yeah, I would be losing my bishop. Yeah, but yeah, after this, h3, just converting the game, really, pinning this, and also they lost the knight there. And my bishop survives, and my opponent resigns. Poetic. Next one. Alright, so let's continue with the next game against the 1900 once again. That third game we play. We have d4, this time I have the white pieces, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, and now there are two continuations here. One of them is obviously playing the King's Indian, and the second one is the Grunfeld, which I was advocating to be played. I wanted to test out my Russian variation preparation. Actually, the theoretical approach is this. You shouldn't really take the spawn with black, because just e4 and the development is really nice. And if you try to defend it, I think you can just like take. I think you can take or play e5. I think these are the moves. Yeah, e5, and if they go for b5, I mean, you just go e takes f6, and then you're like borderline lost. Because there's this, or actually straight up just this, and this. And this is not a great position for black. White has a very nice center and destroyed pawn structure from both sides. And also, if you go bishop g7, the other diagonal falls apart. So yeah. Instead of the King's Indian, which is the more common approach you'll see after g6 in the Indian defenses. e4, d6, f3, castles, bishop b3, all normal stuff, e5. And here I have two choices to play. First of all is yet again the theoretical approach with this, and knight b d7, and then bishop, I would go like queen d2, and knight e5, knight e5. Oh, that's knight d5. Excuse me. I kind of that was a bit of notation blindness. Sorry. I was surprised. Anyway, and yeah, we'll just go bishop b2 here, and game goes on, and castles, and yeah, game goes on. Instead, I went for the draw is aligned with d takes e5. Not draw is in the term that every game here will be played will be a draw, but as you can see from the ensign, it just goes back straight to equality, because really both sides have their ups and downs. The ensign finds this just very drawish. After queen takes, especially after queen takes, Rook takes, knight goes there, knight c6, and b3. Although b3 is actually losing. Yeah, the move you have to play here with white is not b3, which is what I played. It's actually knight d5 getting in. I messed up my preparation. For the first time in this tournament, I messed up my prep. And after knight takes, c takes, knight b4, not a3, what am I talking about? Excuse me. Long castles give up this pawn, but after king b1, knight b4, white has more development in the form of knight c3, bishop there, and also has an attack. According to the computers, this is a draw. This is what I would go for. b3 instead, I kind of fumble it. I messed up my move order. This is bad because of the move. Let me stretch because my back is killing me today. It's the move knight b4, and there's no easy way to defend against a fork. The only way is king f2, and let me tell you right now, this isn't a very pleasant position for me, because I would lose my dark square bishop. And then they would have the dark square bishop, and all my pawns are in light squares, which could mean that I will have a really, really tough time. So yeah. That doesn't happen, instead we have knight d4 instead, which made me smile. Because I went for the move long castles. And after knight takes, bishop takes, rook takes, bishop e6, I just go straight knight b5, forking the pawns, but after c6, I could take that, but I didn't like it because of bishop f8. And then this will try to, like, trap my knight, and in fact my knight is trapped. And there's no easy way to save it, so I didn't go for this. Also would open up the a file for his rook, which I didn't like. So knight c7, instead forking, in parentheses, the rook and the bishop. Rook moves, we take, double up the pawns, having these ugly pawns on e5 and e6, and a4 closing down. I could take again here, but then again it would open up the a file, and then actually black has some chances to win. I didn't like that, so a4 closing down. The best move is bishop e3, but we're not going to talk about that. b6, rook d6, infiltration. Only way to defend is king f7. And bishop g5, trying to trade off the bishop for the knight. To be fair, I didn't know why I went exactly for this. I guess I thought that the dark square bishop just has no targets. So does my bishop, but, like, it can get out. Anyway, bishop f8, rook d1 instead. Getting out of the way, obviously, because I'm being under attack. Bishop e7, bishop takes, king takes, rook d7. And even though this is equal after a5, it's still equal. And I went for the move rook b7, try and win that pawn. And in this position, my opponent resigned. I guess they thought that after b5, they're lost. They're kind of right, but the move rook d8 winning the file is simply nice. Sacrificing the pawn, actually sacrificing 2 pawns for the activity. So actually me giving up the d file was a really huge mistake, and after this, I actually should have gone like king c2. Or rook c7. King c2 is far more natural, and then you would block the bishop like this, and then the rook, and then the king would infiltrate. Excuse me, and then takes there. If you take there, yeah, I have to be careful. If you take there, apparently there's king f4. Yikes. Yeah, but my opponent resigned. So yeah. My opponent straight up resigned here, and we get the 3rd win in a row against this guy, and we continue on with the next game. So, we'll be skipping the previous game, because my opponent didn't play a move. It was a 300. Maybe they got scared, and they straight up said, nah, dude, I ain't doing that shit, and straight up left. But yeah, that's fine. It happens. It happens. It's a thing, but, shouldn't happen. But, Anyway. Let's get on with the game. d4, knight f6 is against the, yeah, 700 or 600, I forgot. It's around the triple digits. How do we destroy this man's career? The London shitstem. How do we extract this person's soul out of their body? e6, d5, and c5. These moves are very nice against the London, especially with d5, e6, and then c5. I played the order differently to try and give him a chance, or because I messed up my prep as usual. Yeah, c3, queen b6. Now b3 is not the best move. Actually, the two best moves here are queen c2 and queen b3. Queen b3, you have to go for this structure, which black is much better here. Positionally, black is better, because after b5, you simply lock down everything. You have to strike with a4. This is the only reason why this is any good. But then you can go knight c6, or bishop there, for this matter. And apparently, this move is the best one. I would not play this in a million years. I straight up wouldn't do that. That is the god of a bishop for whatever the hell that knight was going to be, ever. I would not do that. But b3. Knight c6, knight f3, bishop b7. Classic little moves. Here we have knight e5. I go for the pawn trade. Obviously, I expected like c takes, enter this position. And then I would have gone like knight takes c5. Pawn takes c5 is that idea they would have played. Then I would have gone like knight d7, or and then c5, and then played on the queen side. I'm messing up my words today so badly. I have no idea what's going on. Maybe because I didn't have a single bit of coffee today. Anyway. I also didn't sleep too well. Yeah. Anyway. Knight takes c6, b takes c6. You're thinking, why didn't you take with the queen back? I thought that taking with the pawn back would give me some chances against to poke at the center. Sorry, stressing. C takes, castles, knight c3. And now, apparently black is much better after bishop b4 and queen c1. Because now there's queen a5. And after king d2, the winning move is bishop to a3. Forcing queen c2 and then c5, and then you... This is what I initially calculated. I thought after pawn takes there's just nothing, but there's knight e4 check. And if you take, then I take, and if you take again, then apparently bishop a6 is winning, because you're setting up nasty intentions. And I thought that after this, white is surviving maybe. Like, I didn't see an immediate win here, but yeah, white is hanging by a thread, essentially. But I didn't go for this, because I thought it was too risky. So bishop a6, I did see that sequence, but I didn't like it. But I went for bishop a6 instead, with the idea that if bishop takes, actually, taking first here, would just win the piece. If you take, royal forked. If, you know, if king d1, first of all, we can take the rook. So yeah. Instead, I went queen takes a6. No way to justify that move. I don't think you can justify that move. I guess I saw the light squares. Yeah, I saw the light squares. And thought that maybe this was fine. But I'm going to be honest, that was the easiest tactical sequence I could have played. Anyway, that's okay. a3. Loses the knight in one move. Loses the queen in one move. And resigns. So yeah, at the end of the day, I didn't have to go for the tactical awesomeness, but yeah, not happy that I missed it, but you know, still fine. Next one. Alright, this is, I think, the 9th or 10th game. I'm not sure, I lost count. This is why I'm always saying next game for this video. So yeah, we have a Benoni defense from an 1100. Now this could either be the worst Benoni you've ever seen or the best Benoni you've ever seen. There's no in between. And 1100 playing the Benoni, this is something I will never ever understand. The Benoni is not an easy opening to play. You give up a ton of space for queenside play and kingside play. At the wrong hands, the Benoni, you just lose. There is no in between. This is why I always avoided this defense. Both playing it and telling people that it's probably not worth it. You should probably consider knight of 6. Or d5 even, for a Slav. So d5, this is the best way to play against this. And knight of 6, c4, classic Benoni. d6, knight c3, e5, e4. This is why e5, I don't never understood the e5 here. Like, who the hell even plays en passant? You take back with the f-pawn and you're chilling, you play for e5 in the future, and black is just has a better edge. I never understood that. So, just e4, locked position, but there's a good reason. Bishop b7, f3. I think sometimes this is known as the Yugoslav system. I'm pretty sure it's known as that, or Samius, I think one of the two. Very, very solid weapon against the Benoni. If you ever see the move a6 being played, the idea is b5. You should always counter that with either completely ignoring it because they can't push, or bishop or a4. You know, if they couldn't push, you play bishop b3. If they can push, you play a4, you stop b5. Because if they take back, they lose the rook. That's nothing to that. So b6, this is just not the move. Although I could set up a6, b5, but that's too slow. That's too slow and have a bishop there. Like, for example, in the scenario where this was the position, you still lose the pawn. Because I take your rook, and then I take your pawn, and then you're just worse. So yeah, I really didn't understand the move bishop b7. b6 and bishop b7. Bishop b3. Bishop a6 was the idea. Now, bishop a6 shuts down the one plan that black had on the queen side. So just straight up a4. I mean, a4 could place the knight on b5, force an exchange or something. I don't know. But yeah, this is not a great position for black from a practical standpoint. No, the engine might disagree with a4. I think he wanted stuff like developing the bishop. Yeah. a4 castles, bishop d3, knight d7, knight goes to e2, rook b8. I don't know what they're trying to do on the queen side. There's nothing. Queen d2 or castles, both are fine. The computer wants knight to g3 to go for this, which is what I went for it later. And yeah, a5, horrible positional move, horrible practical move, no need to talk about it. You will never get the move b5 in the Benoni if you play the move a5. And then you have to switch for kingside play, but all my pieces are positioned to the kingside, which means there's no play. So knight f5 and g6, horrible dark square weaknesses, I mean, don't even have to comment on that. Horrible dark square weaknesses, no dark square bishop, immediately bishop h6 and queen d2 getting in the position, knight h5. I don't know what the hell that does. It wanted me to play g4, but I would never play that in a million years. So knight e2 instead, blocking the knight from going anywhere. Knight f4 simply loses a pawn. There's nothing to that. Bishop takes, I guess f5 was the idea, but that also is bad because first of all, I can take, win another pawn. Second of all, then I have to take and go like rook e1. So both plans fail. Both fail, like in every sense of the word. Knight e5. And simply just rook a1. You can take my light square bishop. I don't care because I have a dark square bishop that's like a monster. You have a light square bishop that sees a maximum of 1, 2 squares here and like 5 squares here, and maybe 7 if you add this. But like, yeah, there's nothing. Queen takes, g5, going for it, but there's no attack. Bishop g3, bishop c8. e5, I'm the one breaking the position now. Queen d7, and simply this is lost. E takes, rook takes f5. But the reason is the arena was ending, so ending in like 35 minutes. So I had to be fast. I couldn't just sit around and convert this, like waiting, calculating. I had to play fast. So rook e7, getting in. Losing the a-pawn. Although I would get massive compensation in the form of a weak king and 2 pass pawns, being the double D pawns. So d7, I'm going for it, obviously. Also discovered attack on the rook, attack on the bishop. So bishop takes d7, bishop takes there, queen a1 check, king f2, queen takes there, 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 there. A little bit of repetition, but after this, I sacked my rook, because after all the trades are done, I would just have a bishop patrolling the a pawn, patrolling the b pawn, having this being protected after a4, king e2, king f8, bishop f6. The king is stuck, believe it or not. It would need 1, 2, 3, 4 moves to catch up with my position. And a3, and I went for the pawn, and king c2, and my opponent resigned. And yeah, next game. Alright, so the next game is against another 2077 ELO player. Around my level, a bit higher, but, you know, we will take that. E4, E6, D4, D5, the same friends, and again, the same deviation with Bishop E2. It's a very popular choice, I think. Knight there, takes, Bishop E3 this time around, and, yeah, this draw is Queen A5, only move really to keep the advantage. Castles, knight goes to g6, knight bd2, and just taking that free pristine little pawn. It's still a draw according to the computer. And f4 now will complicate stuff, because now I'm constantly thinking about f5, bishops opening, stuff like that, yada yada yada. Knight c6 going back. Knight b3 attacking my queen, obviously a good move. Queen d8, knight d4. I expected knight c5, although it doesn't quite work, because I can also play b6, or bishop e7, and just be fine, up a pawn, chilling, but knight d4 instead. I could take, but I went for something a bit more nice. Bishop c5. If you take my knight, I take the bishop with check, and if you kick me out, that's fine. I can probably, yeah, I will still take. If you take like this, first of all, you lose a pawn. Even though you have the bishop pair, I think in the long run, black has more chances, and black will like direct the pieces to the king side, play defense, and slowly push those 2 extra pawns. So king h1, getting out of the way. Of course, I probably could have traded right there and just kept the pawn advantage, but I went for something different. Queen b6. Queen b6 is actually not that great because of b4. And now I have the same exact sequence, but with queen takes instead. So black's position is a bit more developed than the last position I showed you, because the queen is out. And now white will have to counterattack. g3, castles, a3. Here I played something a bit inaccurate that after I played immediately regretted. The move is queen c3. Queen c3 on its own doesn't look like it's bad, but it simply wastes time, because after rook f3, if I just don't do anything in my position, my queen is trapped. So queen a5, I kind of regretted my choice of playing that move. King c2, bishop d7, although the position is still relatively fine. There, queen c7, and f5. There's f5, although f5 doesn't really do that much. Like, yes, it does give a pawn, but it doesn't open up the line. Like, even if I take this pawn, what's your move? Bishop f4, I'll just move my king. My queen, not my king. And in fact, bishop f4 happened in the game because I took the pawn, because I thought there was nothing, and in fact there wasn't anything. So queen c8, rook fb3, b6, solidifying everything in my position. There's nothing there. Rook c3, trying to target the knight. Queen b7. This looks very stodgy, but actually is fine. It looks bad, but it's fine. And after bishop f3, bishop e6, I simply solidified my position. Even though I don't have the bishop pair, there is simply nothing for white here. Probably could have gone for g4, but honestly, after this, they've lost their bishop pair advantage. And I can probably take this pawn too. Although there might be rook c7. Is there rook c7? No, I don't think there's rook c7. No, there is rook c7. I will go queen e6, threaten some stuff. And if you go for this, there's check and you trade queens. So yeah. And in this position, after bishop b6, my opponent straight up resigned. Where's bishop b6? I don't see it. Where's bishop b6? There it is. In this position, my opponent resigned. They didn't see any falling continuation. Although I do insist that h3 and g4 is the move to go, I don't think that they're fast enough with counterplay. I think I have solidified my position and everything that it's standing for, and I can play moves like rook ac8. By the time you play the move g4, I will be taking you, and I will be going knight e7. You can push as many pawns as you want, you can place as many bishops as you want that file. I'll trade down everything, and I mean everything. And I mean it, I'll trade down everything. And you just have nothing. I have a 2-on-1 on the queen side, and I have another extra pawn on the king side. You're just lost here. So yeah. Next game. And this was actually the last game that any resistance was put. Because after this, I was just low elo players playing me. Next game. I want to breeze through these last ones because there's nothing. Another England gambit. This time we have the knight c6 variation, queen e7, knight c3. This is my refutation against the England. I know a person who plays the England gambit. I'll tell you some right now. It sucks. There's nothing to it. The gambit sucks. You can go for your d6 line thing. I'll just go for this thing. Because let me show you right now what happens when you play the England against me. Knight takes e5, e4, knight takes f3, queen takes, knight f6. Very logical move, bishop g5. How do you stop bishop g5? You don't. There's nothing here. If you play the move h6 and not knight f6, I'm just too active after this move. If you go here, try to get me, that's just a free queen. You're forced backwards, and it's -4. It's -4, there's nothing. Because moves like bishop before, targeting the pawn, there's no way to defend it. You have to double your pawn structure like that. Then I can go like multiple ways, like getting in there with queen g3 and putting pressure to the pawn. I can go also queen c3 and just attacking that pawn. I mean, your position is hopeless. If you go for this, that's too cute. You have two double isolated pawns. You have two doubled isolated pawns. You cannot have... The only way you can get two doubled isolated pawns in an opening is through the queen's gambit. Let me show it to you. This is the only way you can get two doubled isolated pawns. And it's lost yet again, because two doubled isolated pawns. Yeah, not good. So yeah, bishop g5, my opponent plays the move d6, and d6 is almost lost, shockingly enough. Bishop takes, g takes, and knight d5. If queen takes, we simply simplify, wow, that's great. And then you have to play the move king d8, or that, and lose that pawn, and I'm still up a pawn, and I still have a nice structure. Although you have the bishop pair, that's your only copium in this position. That's it. Everything else is bad. And I go alongside. I will bully you. I will destroy you in the long run. G takes f6 instead, trying to be nice. Queen d8, and simply queen takes, same exact position, but with this extra check. And now I have a full move to make. Bishop e2, this is the move I decided to make. Bishop g7. Bishop g4 check in between move intermezzo. King d8, and yeah, this bishop takes, king takes. If you play the move bishop takes b2, you're a psychopath. You just lose a piece. King takes c8, and long castles, and c6. And c6 is not too great, because knight e7 check, king c7. If you go forward here, I'll just move around and chill. So king c7, it went there again, bishop e5, g3, rook h2, e8, and f4, loses that pawn, and loses the bishop, and then loses that pawn, and then loses that pawn, and then loses that pawn, and then loses a rook for a knight, and then loses a rook for nothing, and resigns. And at this point, I just had to play fast, because we're running low on time in the arena. So yeah. Oh, sorry, my phone flipped. Let's go on to the next game. Next game, French defense yet again. We have knight f3, the Perseu's Gambit. Where do I start with this? So there's a really long line of preparation that I've made where you go g6, knight f6, bishop g7. There's also a knight sacrifice for white here. And I was gonna try that preparation today. So d takes, knight e5, and now it's a different type of gambit. Actually, the line here is this move, and I have to go knight f6. f5 is very much destabilizing. Queen h5 is a huge threat, so I have to go knight f6. Eventually, I have to give up the e pawn yet again. Yet again, there's like knight c3, queen e2. Like, it's just a bad gambit. You gain nothing from this. Knight e5, trying to get at least aggressive. Knight f6, and I was confused after knight g4. So I started calculating a little bit. Because this was not in my preparation. In fact, it was horrible, but I still had to punish it appropriately, right? So knight takes, queen takes. Didn't see a way for me to keep my e-pawn on e4. So queen takes d4, c3. I didn't see any way to keep it. And in fact, I calculated the rest of the game for the next 20 moves. Queen d8, giving up the pawn by going knight c6, getting back to development because white only has a queen out. Bishop b5, bishop d7, castles a6, asking the bishop a question, the bishop goes away. g6, not the most accurate move, but it's a move nonetheless. Knight d2, bishop g7, knight to b3. I can cover both of these squares with a move like b6, but instead I go in queen e7, like, come on, let's get this over with. Bishop f3, castles, and bishop d2. Rook a d8, rook a d1, f5. I actually calculated for a while here. This is all of these moves I played like almost instantly, like between like a couple seconds. I was still a bit caught off guard by the opening choice. I knew it was bad, but I had to punish it. I calculated for a while here and ended with the fact that f5 was a necessary looking move. The computer wants to give up the b-pawn to get the bishop pair, or go bishop b5 and like trap the queen almost. You have to go rook f e1, and then black goes rook b8, and then white saves the queen. And bishop c6. And the queen goes like all the way back there. Then you get your pawn back. And then you get into this. I could have obviously tried to go for this, but I really didn't want to calculate. I was running low on time on the arena, and I had to get the points to get at least a first place or second place or third place. f5. Queen d3, knight e5, getting that sweet little fork. Queen e2, getting the bishop pair, putting up a new bishop on that diagonal. e5, getting in. Knight e5, that's fine. Bishop e4. If f3, really, we're gonna zigzag around the bishop. If b3, that's stupid. Bishop b3 is actually the best move, but we're not gonna talk about that. Yeah. Knight b3, going back. b5, expanding on the queen side, and simultaneously stopping moves like a4 or c4, kind of. b5, king h1 for some reason. I guess they want an attack. I immediately go for bishop d5 and replacing my bishop on the diagonal. And preparing moves like c5 and c4. Knight c1, I don't know the point of that move, so I went bishop c4, skewering the queen. Straight up skewer. There's nothing to it. Bishop takes, rook takes, and queen there. And d4 just closing down the position. Clogging in white's pieces. Bishop e5, threatening the move the move f4, would almost win material. Oh, no, not that. That's one of the other threats. Actually, the main threat is this sacrifice to get this checkmate. If that was not to happen, then like, let's say, what's a move you can play there to stop that? let's say this was the move, probably still would have gone for this. If this was the move, or if the queen moved away from this diagonal, went here for example, then probably f4 would just, just clamp down the position. And in fact, the only move not to lose is rook a1, which no one is finding at all. Yeah. It's bad when the engine spits out only one engine line with both lines saying the same stuff. G3. Queen d3. Getting that queen trade. You have no other choice, because if you go back to e1, you're actually almost mated. After king there, king g1, you have to go f4 here, just getting in. You're like almost mated in this position. It's bad. Queen takes d3. Rook takes. Knight c5. Just a one move attack. Rook d6, rook d5, and a couple moves later, he loses the knight. And we trade down. Rook versus nothing. Playing until getting checkmated in this position is horrible, so I made 3 rooks instead of 2. And now we go on to the last game. And the last game in this arena that Blue Aqua created and does every Sunday, that I only participate when I have more than 2 brain cells left, is against Blue Aqua himself. How poetic that I get to play against him. We have a friend's defense. Now it's 1.5 minutes left. And Blue Aqua can simply just sit back, leave the timer to just run out, and draw this, not lose any points. I wouldn't get any points, would have gotten the 3rd or 4th place minimum, or something like that. I had a very fair difference from the guy in 3rd, so I'll probably still get 2nd. But yeah, he would have just sat there and done nothing. But instead, he plays the Perseus Gambit. Now, I'm not gonna say anything until the conclusion of this game, because I really don't want to. You'll see why. I'm just not gonna say anything. I'll let the game play out. Yeah. The most ironic thing about this is called the Perseus Gambit, which is adding more insult to injury. I have no explanation for these moves. All of these they weren't even pre-moves. He thought for like 0.5 seconds. Almost every move, 0.5. I have no explanation, but this puts me and Blue Aqua on a 5-0 win streak against them, which means that for my long-term viewers, you know what's coming. For my new ones, you'll just have to sit and wait. You know what this means, ladies and gentlemen. I don't have to spoil it. But, yeah. And we got a 2nd place after all these games were done. Folks, I will be seeing you in the next one. Take care. See ya.